Success. We have finally found an episode that I wasn't that thrilled with. I really had high hopes coming into this episode that it was going to be super interesting between Rick and this new group. I thought there was going to be a maze. It was like a gladiator arena. I mean, Rick got wounded pretty cool. Well, yes and no. I made notes, but there's other mental notes that I thought about after I could process. I'm going to start with my notes, and then I'm going to go from there with the things I could think about over time. The very first thing I noticed when they show you the previously on scenes, as Gabriel's car is driving away, a second person sat up in the back seat of it. I noticed it on this episode, which was season 7, episode 10. I did not pick up on that last week's episode. For a minute, I wasn't sure if it actually happened in last week's episode because I could see them doing that, kind of teasing us. So I during a commercial break, I did go back and I watched the opening scenes to season 7, episode 9, which was last Sunday. And yes, the person did sit up in the back seat of the car. So I completely missed that last week. Yeah, I just wasn't observant enough. I did not watch The Talking Dead because we watched Girls at 10 o'clock. So after The Walking Dead's over, we click over to Girls. And we were both pretty tired. But as I turned off Girls, The Talking Dead was on. And the guy that plays Gabriel, I'm terrible with people's real names. I gotta look this up now because it's gonna drive me insane. I know his name and I can't think of it now. Seth Gilliam. Okay, he did confirm the person that was in the back seat of the car. They had weird names, so it was... I only saw it as I was about to turn the TV off, so I didn't fully hit me. So it was either the leader of the group or the girl that he put the knife to her throat. It was one of those two he confirmed was the person in the backseat of the car. He also said she when he was telling Rick what happened. The main thing I didn't like about this episode was the new group. I thought they were going to be a little more badass, but really they talked like children. These were all adults. Some of them were a bit older, so they were all adults when the apocalypse happened. They would have spoke like normal people. I don't remember exactly what she called the gladiator arena, but it sounded like something like a 4 or 5-year-old would say. It was ridiculous. Yes, the hand signals made a lot of sense, but at the same time, when they're speaking, it was just gibberish. There's no reason for them to talk like infants. That's the best thing I can equate it with. Now, yes, Ezekiel and the kingdom, they talk like they're in medieval times, but they gave the background on that. Ezekiel, in addition to being a zookeeper, which is why he has a lion, he was a stage actor. He was into theater. That's why he did this. Now, it also makes a little more sense because the hierarchy that he built upon this medieval time, it makes sense. It gives order and structure to his community. These new people, and they're not in the book, so I don't know who these people are. I don't know where this is going to go. I was correct with Rick smiling at the end. He didn't see a threat. He saw the numbers that he was looking for all last episode. The other thing that gets my goat about these people is they don't get things, they take things. Well, if there's a boat sitting there with supplies on it, you know it's there. Why would you wait for someone else to get it and then you had to go get it from them? So you're still getting your things. You're just actually adding another layer to it because now not only are you tracking these people, you have to go to where they're at, you have to get into their compound, you have to get their things, you had to kidnap Gabriel, you had to get a car, you had to load it all up, and then you had to bring it all back. Okay, maybe we saw this boat that had bullet holes that Rick and Aaron jumped right on into and paddled over before it sank, but they have a junkyard full of supplies. If they don't have a boat, they could have built something that would float. They're in a junkyard. I'm sure there's a boat in there that the motor doesn't work, but the boat is fine. If they had a boat that had a hull that was fine, they had a couple people, paddle over on that pond, get the supplies, done. So I'm not a fan of this new group at all. The one thing that really got my goat, though, was the Christ-like juxtaposition with Rick. Gabriel, the priest, tells these people that Rick could get them anything. He can do anything that he wants to do. I don't remember if those are his exact words, but it's pretty close. He tells them that Rick could do anything he wants. Rick can get them anything that he wants. The priest says this, and then Rick gets thrown into this gladiator arena with the zombie with spikes. What's the first thing that happens? He puts his hand out, his right hand, which, I'll get to that in a second, puts his right hand out and gets a spike right through the center of his hand, giving him a stigmata. And then what does he do? He defeats the creature with the armor on his head, the spikes all around him. He defeats the zombie. But the thing that I did like about it was Rick's right hand. If you read the books, you know that a long time ago, Rick got his right hand cut off by the governor. He no longer has his right hand. This was after he beat up, I cannot remember the prisoner's name, but one of the prisoners, he smashed him up real good and pretty much mangled his right hand. From that point on, Rick became a southpaw and was shooting his gun with his left hand. Shortly after he mangled his hand, the governor cuts it off. Now, the reason they didn't do that in the show was because it was just not cost effective. It would have been a lot of special effects. Rick is a main character. He is the one person we know is not going to die. So they would have had to do special effects to make his hand gone for every single consecutive episode. He gets a hook eventually. Yes, they did do this with Darrell's brother, Merle. He kind of took the place of Rick getting his hand cut off, and they killed Merle off eventually. Now, yeah, they gave Merle the little glove. I think he had the spike on it thing. That covered it up. They could have probably done that with Rick, but it was just cheaper, easier to not do it. It would have been more makeup they would have had to do every single day. But the point that he got the hand, the stigmata thing, I didn't like. The fact that it was his right hand, I did like. Back to the notes. Darrell getting his crossbow back from Richard. We knew he was going to get his crossbow back. We knew he was going to get it back from someone at the kingdom. I don't remember if I called this or said this last week, but I pretty much felt that Richard was going to give him the crossbow back because Richard is like-minded. He wants to go after the Saviors. He wants to kill the Saviors, defeat the Saviors. Of course, Richard is going to give Darrell his weapon of choice back. So we saw Darrell get his crossbow back. The other thing, I didn't write this down, but I noticed this actually this morning. I was running at the gym, and an old episode of Fast and Loud came on where they had to build the Smokey and the Bandit Trans Am. The truck that Darrell and Richard are hiding behind when Richard wants to ambush the Saviors coming by, that's the trailer from Smokey and the Bandit. That's the trailer that's hauling the beer with that whole cowboy scene on the side of it. Yeah. So they threw that in there. That was a cool little thing. Someone on the show must have been a huge fan of Smokey and the Bandit, so that was one of the props that they used. The only other thing I have written down is at the very, very end, Rick goes, and they made a point to show this cat statue earlier, but Rick goes and grabs that found art cat statue and gives it to Michonne. And Michonne's like, what is this for? Rick tells her, for the one that you lost. Now, I don't remember if they ever said this in Michonne's backstory or not. I think they might have. They said who the walkers were that she was with in the very beginning when she found them at the prison. That was her boyfriend and her boyfriend's friend. They were all together when everything happened. There is a complete comic that is Michonne's backstory. I don't remember how much information they gave on her in the show, because after a couple years, some of the books and the show blend together. The reason Michonne has that sword is because of her cat that she used to have. Michonne had a neighbor that, I think she called him like a psychopath or something. It was a young kid. And she was convinced that he killed her cat with that samurai sword. So when the apocalypse happened, she went next door and got the samurai sword. So that's where Michonne's sword came from. Her neighbor's kid, because she thought it was a real sword because he killed her cat with it. There may have been some other throw in there at some point about a cat and Michonne, but if I missed that or don't remember it, this is what triggered in my mind, was the fact that the reason Michonne has a samurai sword is because her psycho neighbor's kid killed her cat with it. So she knew there was a real samurai sword next door. Was not a big fan of this episode. Yeah, there was some action in it, but I don't know, I just didn't like it that much. I just felt let down by this new group. I thought they were going to be cooler than they were, and they just weren't. They were kind of boring. I hated the way they talked. I don't know why they did that. If you like this video or any of my other videos, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. You can like by giving me a big thumbs up. You can subscribe by hitting that big red button down below or clicking on my floating head at the end of this video. Thank you.